Good, so welcome. We're gonna look today at a couple of ways of playing around with a headstand. And I think the most important thing in getting yourself set up for this is to make sure that you have enough space. I don't usually recommend practicing headstand against a wall, just because it's perhaps safer to fall in a kind of tumbling if you're going to. Hopefully you're not going to. But if you're against a wall, it means if you're falling to the side, which we actually don't want. So just make sure that you're setting yourself up so that you have lots of room around you for any potential accidents, which we hopefully don't need. I'm going to look at getting into this in a way that we really practice on the foundation before we try and get our legs up in the air. So it might be that that falling is not something that you ever have to experience, but just in case, good to have all the obstacles removed. So lots of space around your mat and not so much in terms of props or stuff lying around. However, it may be useful to have something strap-like just for the first little bit if that's something that you have handy. If you don't, I'll give options for not needing a strap. So we're gonna start lying on the back, and you can just find a comfortable way to come down, maybe with your arms and legs straight, or you might like to bend the knees, feet to the floor, or support the knees. Something. You just let the shoulders soften into the mat, let the hips be nice and heavy, relaxing your legs, your arms, your head. First, start by stopping. Start by noticing if we're bringing any pattern of holding in the physical body onto our mats, or any busyness in our mental space onto our mats. And we see first if we can just give ourselves a little bit of time to let that go, so that we begin the practice from a really soft, calm, quiet space. Maybe helpful right away to begin paying attention to your breathing, watching how the breath is moving in the body. So the breath can give us information about where there might be tightness or tension. The focus on the breath also helps us to draw our minds away from other stories that are not relevant to being right here, right now. So the breath always brings us into the present. Maybe beginning to feel the breath along the back of your throat. So developing your Ujjayi breath, noticing how the breath fills the space of the rib cage. So we feel the breath in the chest, but also in the back ribs, in the backs of the shoulders. You might feel kind of how your shoulder blades broaden on your mat as you're inhaling. As you're exhaling, you can feel how the belly automatically sinks in response to that breathing out. So we might start to enhance that little bit of core activity. So again, inhaling into the full space of the ribs, and as you do that, you'll feel a kind of swelling in the belly. And then as you exhale, you can draw the lowest part of your belly in and maybe slightly up towards your ribs. So it's not a hardening of the core, but rather just kind of a gathering of your energy towards your own center. And really important when we're looking at any kind of arm balance or inversion that we know where the center of the body is, that we can find the core stability that helps us to find balance in those shapes. Just taking a few more steady breaths here. Great, and then you can draw your right knee in towards your chest and just wrapping your hands around your right shin. Take a few moments here, inhaling into the length of your left leg. So maybe you're taking your left leg straight forward on the mat if you didn't already have that. And as you're exhaling, seeing if you can scoop in through that lowest part of your belly to fold the right thigh a little bit closer towards you, still keeping your arms, your shoulders relaxed. Just a moment to settle into that right hip crease. Good, and then we'll move into half happy baby. So you can take your left hand to your left hip, reach the right arm to the inside of your right leg, and then taking the right hand to the outside of the right foot, you can start to float the right heel away from the right hip, keeping your weight even across your hips. We're seeing if we can maybe press down with that left hand to hold the left hip in place, right heel floating away from the right hip, but sinking your right thigh down beside your torso. So folding even more now into that right hip crease. Maybe we're finding a sense of length along the back of the right hamstring. A few steady breaths here. And really using this lengthening quality in your left leg and the pressing down with your left hand to hold the hips steadily towards the floor as you keep melting that right thigh bone towards your right side body or even down beside your right side body. Great, and then we'll bring the right leg back to center. Now we're gonna scoop the hands around the back of the right thigh, or reaching your right leg long, straighten your leg out as much as you're able. You might find that you can root your first two fingers and thumb around your right big toe, or we could take the strap if we have it and loop the strap around the sole of the foot so that we can straighten out the leg without having to reach the foot. So those three options again were hands looping around the back of the thigh, and then we just straighten the leg from there. So we're still holding onto the back of the leg, or using your strap, or using your first two fingers and thumb around your big toe. Good. Seeing if we can keep that sense of settling in the shoulders so that the shoulders are not really in effort in this shape. Nice long breaths into your left leg, also breathing up the back of your right leg. As you're exhaling, seeing if we can hug the right thigh bone into the right hip socket, so a sense of the weight of the right thigh bone dropping towards the floor so that the leg is connected to the torso. Maybe, again, that scooping in of the low belly to bring the right thigh closer towards you without bending the knee any more than it is. So really looking for length up the back of the leg and then combining that with the fold at the right hip crease. And if you're wondering what this has to do with a headstand, the answer is nothing if we're in the handstand already, but we'll see that when we want to find the path towards getting into the handstand, that length in the back of the legs is really helpful. So just really seeing if you can find as much softness and space in the back of your right leg as possible here. Really reaching up with the ball of the foot towards the ceiling, and then seeing if you're able to fold that right leg closer towards you with all of that length. So a little bit more of a pull through the hamstring. Good. And then we can again bend the right knee, and we'll just let that leg rest long on the mat. You might notice that it feels longer than your left leg. And you can change sides. So we'll bend the left knee, bring the left knee in towards the chest, just for a moment looping your hands around your left shin. And see if we can fold into the left hip crease really comfortably. So now finding breath in the space of your right leg. So the right leg is a bit of an anchor. As you exhale, the scooping in of the belly brings the left thigh closer towards you, exploring that fold at the left hip crease. And then again, this half happy baby. So right hand to your right hip, left arm to the inside of your left leg, reaching for the outside of your left foot, floating the left heel away from the left hip, keeping the shoulders relaxed, keeping your right leg nice and strong. You might even kind of press down with the back of the right knee. Keep your right hand pressing into the right hip to hold the right hip in place. So the weight of the hips really even on both sides. We're not rocking over to the left. And then still, as you're letting that left heel float up, see if you can melt the left thigh bone down towards your left side body or beside your left side body. So really deep fold in the left hip crease. And again, maybe some sense of a gentle tug in the left hamstring. And just taking steady breaths here. And then we can release that left foot, draw the knee back in towards the center and find one of those variations. So either the hand scooping around the back of the left thigh and we're straightening the leg up from there, or reaching with the first two fingers and thumb for your big toe and straightening the left leg up, or using the strap to give you a little bit more length in your arms so that you don't have to reach all the way to your foot. So seeing if we can, again, breathe length up the back of the left leg. Also breathe into the length of your right leg. So we still find that sense of the anchor in the right leg. And then as you're exhaling, you're feeling the left thigh bone settle into the left hip socket without losing that lengthening of the back of the leg. Also letting the shoulders be relaxed. Also seeing if we can scoop in the belly and maybe fold that left thigh closer towards the body without changing the bend in the knee. Just keep moving with slow, steady breaths and seeing if each cycle of breathing can give you some little sense of a shift or a change or a spaciousness. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. We don't have to be able to see it from the outside. I'm just noticing that the breath allows us to create little baby steps towards something significant. Great, and then we can again bend the left knee, and let go of the foot or place the strap off to one side, and take your left leg forward on the mat and just feel now that the hips are even, that the legs feel equally long. Great, and then we'll draw the knees into the chest. You can take your hands or your arms around your shins. You might rock a little bit side to side here. So we're just gently massaging the back against the floor. And then bringing the soles of the feet to the mat and inhale to reach your arms up alongside your ears. Nice stretch back through the fingers. Exhale, rolling onto your right side. And place the left hand to the mat, pressing yourself slowly up to a comfortable seat. Good, and coming into a cross-legged seat here, we'll just for a moment find a little mobilization of the shoulders and some softening in the neck. So you can bring your hands to your knees, let the shoulders settle away from the ears, sit up nice and tall. As you exhale, you can let your chin drop down towards the center of the chest, the back of the neck nice and long. Inhaling, the right ear sweeps towards the right shoulder. Taking the head across, left ear towards your left shoulder. And then as you exhale, just kind of semicircle back down through center, nice and long through the back of the neck. So just do that a few times in your own easeful range of motion, following your own rhythm of breathing. Just loosening tensions or kinks out of the neck. And then we'll change directions with your next inhaling. Bring your left ear towards your left shoulder, head across, right ear towards the right shoulder, and then circling down through this kind of semicircle shape, nice and long through the back of the neck. So just keep going in your own smooth rhythm of breathing, a few more times around. If you notice any area that feels especially sticky, you can go particularly slowly through that area so that you have more time to notice exactly where that stickiness is. And maybe that gives us the ability to let some of that stickiness go or smooth it out so that we get a more fluid range of motion. Good, and then we'll bring the head back to center, so you can just balance it up nice and tall at the top of the spine. And then taking the arms out shoulder height. So we'll just kind of roll through the whole range of motion of the shoulders by turning your right thumb down towards the floor and seeing if you can really roll the shoulder in. At the same time, the left thumb rolls back, so that shoulder rolls outwards. And then we switch sides. So left thumb rolls down, the right thumb rolls back. And just do that a few more times. So seeing it on each side, if you can really find the full rolling in motion and the full rolling out motion to get the kind of maximum range in each direction. And again, if you're noticing anything that just feels like a little bit of a block, see if we can go especially slowly and pay attention to what that block is and how we might untangle or loosen it out. And once more, rolling the left thumb down and in, right thumb out and back, and then we'll come back to center. And inhale to bring your arms up alongside your ears. Exhaling to turn to the right, so your left hand comes to your right knee, your right hand behind you. We'll inhale here to sit up nice and tall. Exhaling to turn a little bit deeper. Staying as you are, but sitting up taller on your inhale. And then turning a little bit deeper on your exhale. And one more time, growing tall through the spine. Finding a little bit more turn. And coming back to center. Inhaling to reach the arms up. Exhaling, turning to the left. And inhaling to sit up taller. Exhale, scooping in the belly to turn more to the left. Inhale again, nice tall sit. Exhale, a little bit deeper into the twist. And again, inhaling to grow up through the ribs, up through the crown of the head. And exhaling a little bit more into that turn. Good, we'll come back to center and reach your arms up on the inhale. And then exhale, bringing your hands towards the floor. And just walk the hands forward a little bit, seeing if we can find a comfortable forward fold here. So I'm really moving into the creases of the hips. Seeing if we can keep the spine especially long, so we'll reach the ribs away from the hips, stretching out through the low back and the belly as you're inhaling. And keeping that sense of length, so we scoop in through the lowest part of the belly, but we don't shorten the belly as we fold a little bit deeper on the exhale. And then we'll walk the hands back in. From there, coming to all fours. And take a few rounds of cat and cow. So we'll set the knees under the hips, the wrists align under the shoulders. And from here, inhaling to lengthen the belly, lifting the sits bones, lifting the chest. Exhaling to round the back, pressing down through the hands, really puffing up through the back body. Feel the shoulder blades spread wide. Inhale again, reaching your ribs forward. We're lengthening out, lifting the sits bones, lifting the heart. Exhale as you're rounding and seeing if we can find that really curled in shape, belly drawing in, all the muscles of the core active. One more time, inhaling to lengthen out through the front body, reaching your ribs forward through your arms. And exhaling to round. And then we'll come back to a neutral spine, coming down onto your forearms. And seeing if we can plant the forearms like roughly shoulder width apart. If you're able, you might find that the hands have to come in a little bit closer, but we can explore a range of motion in the shoulders by trying to set the elbows exactly shoulder width apart and then still keep the hands shoulder width apart as well. You press down through your forearms here so that we have a wider shape in the upper back and feel that the shoulders are really stable on the back. And then moving through a few rounds of cat and cow again. So as we're inhaling, we're seeing if we can draw the ribs forward through the arms, lift the sits bones, lift the chest. Exhale, pressing down through the forearms to round through the back body, curling in, hug the belly in, let the head drop. Inhale again to reach the ribs forward through your arms. You kind of drag your forearms against the mat towards you. Exhale, rounding, pushing down through the whole length of the forearm, so not just your elbows. Inhale once more to lengthen forward, kind of dragging the forearms towards you to pull the chest through the arms. Exhale, pressing down, maybe even using your wrists and your hands to push the mat away from you for that rounder shape in the back, really curling in through the belly. And then we'll inhale to come back to a neutral shape in the spine and come back up onto your hands. And then from here, taking your hips up and back, moving into downward dog. And just take a few moments to get comfortable here in your downward dog and bend the knees, rock the hips, whatever you like. And then seeing if we can really root firmly down through the hands, the inner edge of the hand pressing into the mat. We're pushing the mat away from us to send the hips up high. Think about that kind of wider shape of the shoulder blades on the back. So upper arm bones moving outwards away from your ears. And then we'll bend the right knee, pressing firmly, especially into the right hand, to send weight towards your left heel. So we see again if we can look for lots of length in the back of the left leg as we draw weight back into that left heel. And then we'll switch sides. So we're bending the left knee, lengthening out the right leg, and then pressing especially into the left hand to shift weight back into your right heel to get more space in the back of that right leg. Great, and then we'll straighten out both legs as much as you're able, pressing into both hands. See if you can settle both heels more heavily towards the floor, still reaching up through your sits bones. So keep the hips high even as you're pressing the heels down towards your mat. And from here, inhaling to ripple forward into a plank. Again, that really stable shape in the upper back, so kind of almost rounding through the upper back as we come forward. Exhaling to lower your way down, maybe all the way, maybe just to chaturanga. Inhale to a cobra or upward dog. And exhaling, taking the hips up and back, moving into a downward dog. And then from here, we'll walk the feet forward to the hands, arriving at a nice comfy forward fold. And inhale to come halfway up, reaching the ribs forward. Exhale, settling back down, head dangling heavy. Inhale again, halfway up, ribs reaching forward, shoulders spread wide from your ears. Exhale, melting down, head heavy, back of the neck soft. And one more time, inhaling to come halfway up. And then exhaling to scoop the belly in and fold back down. Great, and then we'll just keep the arms and the head nice and heavy. You can slowly roll up to standing on your inhale, coming up bone by bone, feeling your way up through your spine, eventually arriving at a nice tall stance at the top of your mat. So you can root down through the feet, reach the tailbone down, lift the ribs. Keep the shoulders again spreading outward. So we want to feel that there's space in the chest, but also space in the upper back. We don't want to squeeze the shoulder blades together, but think rather instead of like just sending those points of your shoulders straight out away from your ears so that both sides of the body are open. Inhaling to reach the arms up. Exhaling to fold, bringing the hands towards the floor. Inhaling halfway up, reaching the ribs forward. Exhale, softening down. You can plant your hands, stepping or hopping the feet back, moving through a vinyasa to downward dog. So whatever path you like. Maybe again, exhaling to lower, inhaling into a cobra or upward dog. Exhaling, hips up and back to downward dog. And then we'll just take about 5 breaths in this downward dog shape. So again, rooting through the inner edges of the hands, shoulders spread wide, sending the hips up on your inhale. Seeing if you can root down through the heels as you exhale. And inhaling up the length of the spine. Exhaling to soften down the backs of your legs. And I'll just count out 3 more. You can have your own rhythm of breathing. That's 1. 2. Big inhale, and really feeling the bridge of the shoulder blades between the strength of your arms and the strength of your core. And 3. So bending your knees, looking forward, and step your feet or hop your feet up towards your hands. Inhale to come halfway up, reaching the ribs forward. Exhale, sinking back down. Pressing into the feet. Inhale to grow all the way up to standing. Reach the arms tall, nice full stretch. Exhaling, hands to the center of the chest. And bending your knees, sit your hips low. Inhaling to reach the arms up alongside the ears, Utkatasana. Exhaling to fold, legs begin to straighten as your hands reach for the floor. Inhale, halfway up, the ribs reaching forward. Exhale again, planting the hands firmly into the mat, stepping or hopping back, moving with your own breath, your path to downward dog. And then we'll inhale to reach the right leg up and back. Exhale, draw the knee into the center of the chest. Bring your shoulders as far forward as you're able. Inhale to reach your right leg up and back. Exhale again, knee into the chest, really rounding through the upper back. It's kind of curling in through the belly, leaning your weight into your hands. Inhale again, reaching up and back. And once more, exhale, knee to chest, leaning into the hands, pushing the mat away from you. Find that steady place in your shoulders. Good. We'll inhale to reach up and back. Look for all of that stability and strength as you exhale the knee into the chest. Try and make space under your body, and then we're stepping the right foot towards the hands. And spin your left heel down to the floor, inhaling to come up, warrior one. And just taking a couple of steady breaths here, relatively square hips, hugging your belly away from your right thigh, growing up nice and tall through your ribs, long reach up through your fingertips. And then we'll exhale to move into warrior two. Arms can come out shoulder height. There's not enough room in my pants for this microphone at all anymore. It's just gonna keep jumping out. Good, we'll keep sitting the hips low, rolling the right thigh bone out in the hip socket. See if you can really find a strong sense in the shoulders, but a softness around the base of your neck. So we're not lifting the arms with the neck muscles, but rather more with the muscles that sit kind of like just right where the arm bone connects into the shoulder socket. Good, and then straightening your right leg. Inhale to reach the right arm as far forward as you're able. Exhaling the right arm down, left arm up. Moving into triangle pose, sending your hips back. Ribs reaching forward, rolling the left side ribs open. A little bit of a sense of a twist in the spine. And feel here, especially as you're exhaling, that hug in the low belly, how that gives us some stability to support the spine in space. We can get acquainted here with the same core muscles that are going to help us support the hips in space when we're upside down. And then we'll inhale to come back up to standing. Exhale, bending your right knee, warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior, the right arm sweeping back. Exhaling to windmill the hands down to the floor, stepping back to plank. All right, and then we'll come down onto the forearms here, so moving into a forearm plank. Seeing again if you can set up your elbows so that they're exactly shoulder width apart, and then try, if you're able, to keep your hands shoulder width apart as well. If it doesn't work, the hands can come in closer. Really pushing down through the whole line of the forearm, so not just the elbows. Also use your wrists, use your hands, use your finger pads, so we really get this kind of puffed up rounder shape in the upper back. There's a little bit of shortening in the belly so we can access more of the muscles of the core, and then also lift with the inner lines of your legs. So there's work in the legs to help hold you up, and I'm probably a little bit higher up here with my hips because I'm not doing as much core work as maybe you might be if you don't have a baby inside you. So the hips should ideally be in line with your heels and your shoulders. I would say though that it's better to be too high than too low, so don't let it feel saggy. Good, and then we're gonna exhale to bring the knees and the front of the pelvis down towards the floor, and we'll just come into a little sphinx shape here, and I'm gonna come right up onto my hands, but you could stay on your forearms if you like. If you want to explore more of the flexibility, then coming up onto your hands is also quite fine. Wherever you are, see if you can keep that sense of lifting the inner lines of the thighs. So there's kind of almost like an inward rolling of the thigh bones to keep space in around the sacrum bone, the sacroiliac joint. And then we're dragging the forearms of the hands towards the body so that we can pull the heart farther forward and let the shoulders melt back. Great, then you can exhale to come back down, landing on your belly, hands in by your ribs. We'll inhale to press up to all fours or plank. Exhale to take the hips up and back for downward dog. And then we'll inhale to reach the left leg up and back. Exhale, hugging the knee into the chest, bringing your shoulders forward. You can really kind of curling into yourself here. Inhale, reaching up and back. Really make sure the hips stay square, so lift the inner line of the leg. Exhale, knee into the chest, leaning as far forward as you're able into your hands. Inhale again, up and back. Lift the inner line of the left thigh. And once more, exhale, knee into the chest, scooping in the low belly to help really pull the left thigh up towards you. We'll inhale to reach up and back. Find all of those same efforts in the core and the arms, wide shoulders, push the mat away from you to make space, and then we'll step the left foot towards the hands. And spin the right heel down to the floor, arms up alongside your ears on the inhale, coming into warrior one. And sitting low in the hips, draw the belly away from the left thigh, grow up nice and tall through your ribs, finding breath in the back body as much as the front body, so remembering to breathe into your back ribs, your backs of the shoulders. Nice wide space there. Great, and then we'll come into warrior two, so the arms out shoulder height, adjusting the feet as you need to, seeing if we can again find that kind of little bit of a rolling outwards of the thigh bone and the hip socket. Left hip tucks under the body as the ribs go straight up out of the hips. And then finding that activity in the upper parts of the arms around the shoulder socket, but keeping the base of the neck soft. Sometimes it's even helpful to feel like you want to push down with the hands, but you don't let your arms move. So we feel even like the underside of the upper arm can engage here a little bit to help keep the arm in place while still relaxing the neck. Good, and then we'll straighten the left leg. Inhale to reach your left arm as far forward as you can, and then exhale, bring the left arm down, the right arm up for a triangle pose. Nice opportunity once more to find some length in the backs of the legs, so specifically the left leg here. And then also a sense of hugging in through the lowest part of your belly as you're exhaling. And seeing how that gives you more control and more support of the upper body in space here. So as we exhale, we could find perhaps a little bit more of that twisting, the right side ribs rolling open, more lengthening in the sides of the waist, and just more of a sense that the rib cage is really light. So the work of the core holds the ribs floating without much support. Great, and then we'll press down through the feet. Inhale to come back up. Exhaling to bend the left knee. Inhale, reverse warrior, left arm reaching back. Exhaling to windmill the hands down to the floor. You step back to plank. Again, your own path to downward dog, however you like to get there, just following your own breath. And then on the end of your next exhale, bending your knees, looking forward, and then step your feet or hop your feet up towards your hands. We'll inhale to come halfway up. Exhale to sink back down. Pressing into the feet, bending the knees, sit the hips low. Inhale, arms sweeping up alongside the ears, Utkatasana. And then as you're exhaling, stand up tall. Hands can come towards the center of the chest. Good, again, we'll bend the knees, sit the hips low. Inhaling to reach the arms up. Good. Exhaling, hands to the center of the chest, and now we'll twist or taking the left elbow, towards the outer right knee. So turning the chest towards the right, and then sitting low in the hips, seeing if we can get the heart higher than the hips here. Little bit of effort again in the deeper core to create length in the center body. So each time you're exhaling, you're scooping that low belly in, seeing if it helps you to turn the ribs a little bit more to the right. Making sure that the hips are truly square. Even take a look at your knees and just make sure that that right knee is parallel with the left knee. So sometimes we have to pull the left hip back as we turn to the right. Good. Then we'll stay low in the hips, turn back to center. Inhale, reach your arms up alongside your ears. Exhale, hands back to the center of the chest, and then turning to the left and seeing maybe if we can connect the right elbow to the outer left knee. Sit the hips nice and low. Make sure the hips are square as you turn off to the left. And finding that little bit of core effort to keep lengthening through the torso so that even as you're sitting low in the hips, there's a sense of kind of getting taller and longer, more space for turning. Good, stay low in the hips. We'll turn back to center. Inhale to reach your arms up, and then exhaling to fold, legs straightening, nice long space in the legs. And we'll inhale, halfway up, reaching the ribs forward. Exhale, planting the hands, stepping or hopping back, your path to downward dog. And then inhaling here to reach the right leg up and back, and really keeping the hips square. Exhale, knee into the chest. Find again that action of hugging in through the core so we can scoop the thigh up high, press the mat away from you, make space to step your right foot forward. We'll spin the left heel down. Inhale again to come up to warrior one. Settling the shoulders, settling the hips, long reach up through your arms. From here, we'll see if we can bring the hands together, so palms touching, still letting the shoulders settle away from the ears. And then bending your elbows, see if you can drop your thumbs down behind your head so that the thumbs might connect to somewhere kind of on the upper back. We're aiming to squeeze the elbows closer in and reach the elbows up high. At the same time, spread the heads of the shoulders out wide, or spread the shoulder blades wide on the back. And maybe sink the heads of the shoulders or the muscles around the neck a little bit away from the ear. So there's this kind of soft, wide space around the base of the neck. But lots of reach up through your elbows and a narrow space between your elbows. And a little bit more flexibility in the shoulders. And we're kind of seeing if we can bring the upper arm bones even back behind the ears here. The tendency then, of course, is to also back bend. So paying attention to your front ribs, see if you can draw the front ribs in a little bit and keeping your breath moving into your back body. And then inhale to reach your arms up. Exhaling again into warrior two, the arms out, shoulder height. And we'll inhale here, reverse warrior. Exhale your right forearm to your right thigh, or right hand down to the floor. You can bring your left arm alongside your left ear. And breathing into the left side body, nice long stretch out through the left side ribs. And pay attention again to the spaces around your neck, so you can keep that right shoulder moving away from the right ear. And roll your left thigh arm bone away from your left ear, so you might turn the left pinky slightly down, roll the thumb up towards the ceiling to create that space. Good. And then pressing into the feet, inhaling to come back to reverse warrior, long through your right side. Exhaling to windmill your hands down to the floor. We'll step back to plank. And again, coming down into a forearm plank, and we'll hold this for another moment. So lining your elbows up under your shoulders, seeing if you can get your forearms roughly shoulder width apart, pressing down through that whole line from your elbow right through to the tip of your middle finger. So everything engaged in pushing the mat away from you. A little bit of curl in the belly, lifting through the inner lines of the legs. Nice supported shape here. And then trying not to use your face to hold you up, because it's not going to help. Really relaxing through the muscles of the face. Great, and then we'll transition into a dolphin pose. So you can walk your feet in a little bit closer, send your hips up high, and see if you can really push the forearms in the same way down into the mat to get the hips away from the earth. And we might start to feel an engagement in the deeper core here to help us. So low belly, drawing in on the exhale to keep that buoyancy in the hips. And then as the hips are reaching up, can you stretch your heels closer down towards the floor? Some long space in the back of your legs. And for everybody, it will be different depending on the ratio of your upper arms to the length of your neck and head, but trying as much as you're able to really keep your head away from the floor. So you're pushing down through the forearms to send the crown of the head away from your mat. And if you have a shorter upper arm or a longer neck, you might find that it's a bit challenging to do that. And just do what you can. Okay, and then we'll bring the shoulders back forward over the elbows. You can step the feet back, lowering down, again finding a sphinx shape here. So pelvis rooting into the floor, and kind of drag your forearms against the mat to pull your heart forward, or maybe turning the hands outwards and coming right up into straight arms. So again, up to you, what's a good edge for yourself. Inner line of the legs lifting, heart pulling forward, shoulders melting back. Good. And then exhaling to lower down. And we'll bring the hands in by the ribs. Inhale to press yourself up, all fours or plank. Exhale to take the hips up and back, downward dog. And then we're inhaling to reach the left leg up and back, lifting the inner line of the leg. Exhale, knee into the chest, finding that roundness in the back. Space under the body to step your left foot forward. Right heel spins down. Inhale, arms reaching up, coming into warrior one, squaring the hips. And then we'll see here if we can bring the palms together. Again, bending your elbows so that your thumbs dip down behind your head. Maybe you can kind of connect the thumbs towards the upper back. Find not a back bend, but rather a more neutral shape in the spine. So front ribs knit in, breath in the back ribs. And then seeing if you can spread the shoulders out wide, the upper back is broad, and then still narrow in the elbows and reach up through the elbows, and maybe bring your forearms back a little bit farther behind your ears. So really exploring flexibility in the arms. Just kind of lengthening out of the armpit and the inner line of your upper arms. And still looking for that stable shape in the upper back, so the shoulder blades are wide on the back body. Great, then we'll bring the arms back up on an inhale. Exhale, moving into warrior two. Good. Inhaling here, reverse warrior, lengthening out your left side. Exhale, left hand to the floor or left forearm to your left thigh, right arm alongside your right ear. And seeing if you can keep the left shoulder away from the left ear. If you have your forearm to your thigh, you could even push the forearm down into the thigh. Right arm bone rolling away from the right ear by turning your pinky finger slightly down, the thumb slightly up. And then really nice long reach out through those right fingers, but still kind of keeping a plugged in feeling of the right arm into the shoulder socket so that everything is stable and connected, even as we look for space and flexibility. And then we'll inhale to come back to reverse warrior, the left side body long. Exhale, windmilling the hands down to the floor. One more time, moving back to plank and finding your own path to downward dog. Great, and then you can bring your knees down to the mat. Just sit into child's pose for a moment so you can bring the tops of the feet to the floor, hips towards your heels, settling the belly towards or between your thighs. You can bring your arms back by your side so that we can let the shoulders just kind of droop forward and relax. And take a few breaths here. And then you can inhale to come up to seated on your heels. And we'll just have a little look. So like I said, there are two ways that we could approach the headstand. And the first kind of more classic variation gives us a little bit more contact to the floor, but it might be more tricky for some people to get into. So you might find this is the easier variation, or you might find that the next one that we do is more simple for you. I'm just gonna walk through all the steps and then invite you to try it on your own. And most importantly, what I really care about in this shape is that we don't jump into it, but rather that we find the foundation and then we find the core control to pick the legs up really slowly, so that there's the least risk of falling out of the shape, and especially of falling badly out of the shape. If we're jumping, we don't have any control over how we exit. So please make sure that you're not overly ambitious and you're really just trying to find the actual core effort and foundational effort of setting up this pose. And I think what's interesting to me is that like an arm balance is really, I would say 90% of the work you do with your feet on the floor, and then like the last 10% is getting your feet up off the floor. So if your feet don't ever lift off the floor, you're still doing 90% of the pose. So you don't feel like you have to get all the way there. So to come into this shape, we're gonna have the elbows shoulder width apart. You can always test that by bringing your hands to your elbows and then taking the hands forward. And the tendency is for them to wanna swing outward. So we really have to kind of hug in with the elbows so that they stay in place. And then we interlace the fingers and we keep the pinky finger, the bottom pinky finger tucked to the inside, just so that the pinky fingers are not crossed over each other in case we tumble out. We want to make sure that there's not extra weight on that bottom finger. And then we want to find the very top point of the skull, which is not this flat part in front, but rather like a kind of peak at the very top. So you can test that by bringing your forehead between your eyebrows, your heel of your hand between your eyebrows, and then rolling your hand so that where the tip of the middle finger lands, like that's what goes on the floor. So we're gonna set that point to the floor, and you could still just be looking here rather than doing, if you're new to this pose, I would suggest not jumping in too fast. Once I get here, I wanna see if I can really push down with the forearms. You should be able to actually pick your head up still, so we have like the least possible amount of weight on the head. And then I'm gonna straighten up the legs. And this is where long legs or flexible legs comes in handy. So if I can really walk the feet in close, you can see that I'm almost in the pose. Like the hips are almost aligned over the shoulders enough that I don't need any extra help to get the feet off the floor. If you're way back here, your work is gonna be in just getting that flexibility so that you can walk in. It's almost impossible to come into the shape from this far back because because the hips are not centered over the foundation. So we see if we can really walk in close, close, close. And then I'm gonna bring in one knee to the chest and keeping a kind of rounder shape. And I just see if I can keep tipping into the forearms so that the second knee can come into the chest. You can see there's no jumping. Once I'm here, like straightening up the legs and coming into the full shape is really not a lot of effort, and it's not even that interesting. Like all of the work and all of the interesting stuff is happening in getting from feet on the floor into this curled in shape and really pushing down with the arms. Again, you should feel like you could almost lift your head off the mat. You probably can't, but you should feel like you can almost do it. So maybe give that a try. I'm gonna walk you through it again, but we can do it all together now. So we're interlacing the fingers, making sure again that you have that shoulder width spread in the elbow, so not too wide. Very peak point of the head coming down onto the floor. Keep pushing down with the forearms, straightening up the legs. Walk your feet in as close as you can, and then looking for one knee into the chest. Maybe you can tip a little bit more weight towards the forearms, second knee into the chest. And if you can get there, then you've pretty much got the shape. And once you feel really steady there, then you could look at straightening up the legs. Great. And then from there, we could find our way back down. So that's essentially how you do it. And it's probably good to not practice too much all at once because we don't want to create too much strain on the neck. But now that you know sort of what the steps are, it's maybe something that you can come back to sort of over and over again. And the more we practice, of course, the more simple it becomes, or the more familiar it becomes, rather. The second way we can come into this shape is a tripod headstand. So I'm gonna have the hands and the crown of the head on the floor. It could be a little bit more weight on the neck. So if you have any neck issues and that first variation already felt like a bit much for you, then I wouldn't suggest this as a better option. If the flexibility was challenging for you, then this might be more of an interesting way to get in. So I'm gonna start kind of on hands and knees. And what I really wanna think of is creating a triangle with my hands and the point of my forehead. You can think of, was it an equilateral triangle? I don't know, math. High school math was so long ago. But you want to think about setting your head the same distance away from your hands as your hands are away from each other. If the head is too close, it's really unbalanced. It's almost impossible to hold the shape. So I actually have to, as I come down, go forward with my head so that I land probably like, it feels a little bit awkward. But what we want is that there's a 90-degree bend in the elbow. So the elbows are aligned over the wrist and the head is really forward of where the hands are. And again, the hands are shoulder width apart here. And then the steps are almost the same. I walk the feet in as close as I can to get the hips in that point over the head. From here, I'm actually gonna maybe have a chance to kind of climb my way in. So I could bring one thigh, or one shin, to the back of an arm, and then I could bring the other shin to the back of an arm. So I already have a little sort of in-between step, which is nice. And then from there, knee to chest, and then I could go up if I wanted to. So again, I'll walk you through that. We can just see where we get to. Being mindful of your neck, it will be some pressure on the head, but if it feels wrong, then it probably is wrong. So hands shoulder width apart, be nice and generous in your idea of shoulder width. And then as you go down with your head, make sure you're really going forward of where your hands are so that you have that sense of the equilateral triangle. And then you bring up the hips. And we keep the elbows squeezing in, make sure they don't swing out. Walk your feet in. See if you can get a shin to the back of an arm, and then maybe another shin to the back of the other arm. Maybe this is where your edge is. Or we see if we can climb a knee into the chest, and then the other knee into the chest. And then maybe from there you're going up into the full headstand, or maybe not. And when you feel like you've had enough on your neck, then you again just come down back onto your shins, and we give the neck a little rest. Great, and then from there we come into child's pose to just a little bit of a counter experience of really resting through the neck and the shoulders. So again, you can kind of let your shoulders droop forward. Breathe into the back of the shoulder blades. And then we'll inhale to slowly come up to seated on the heels. You can take your hips off to one side, bringing the legs forward. And then we'll just roll down onto the back here. So letting the head rest on the floor. You could have the soles of the feet to the floor here. We're just gonna see if we can ease up the neck by finding really gentle movements to loosen up as much as possible. So letting the back of the head first rest heavily into the floor. And then slowly letting your face turn towards the right. Just really slowly, slowly, slowly. Take as much time as you can. So only the muscles that absolutely need to work to turn the head are on. Everything else is seeing if it can just really, really release. And then we'll inhale to come back towards center. And exhale to turn to the left. And again, just seeing you can go really slowly so that we're able to actively turn off all the muscles that we don't need in the neck. And we're letting the floor kind of just massage out the back of the skull as we go. So you can feel if, like, every little millimeter of skin on the back of your head gets that massaging. We're slowly turning back towards center. And then going once more to the right. Slowly back to center. And over to the left. And back to center. Good. And then from here, we'll bring the hips a little bit over to the right. So setting up for a spinal twist, you can bring your arms out about shoulder height, and then we'll let the knees settle to the left. You can create as much twist as you like by how you set up your knees. So having the knees staggered is a little bit less twist. We could stack the knees for some more twist. You could even cross your right thigh over your left for more of a spinal twist. It's just finding the right amount of kind of turning your hips away from the floor and then settling your upper back towards the floor. And taking smooth, steady breaths here. And then we'll slowly come back towards center and shift your hips a little bit over to the left. And finding the setup that you like for your legs as they drop over to the right. So either knees staggered, knees stacked, or maybe your left thigh crossing over your right leg. And seeing if we can let the shoulders be relaxed here, especially letting that left shoulder settle towards the floor. You could turn your head slightly to the left, so maybe adding a little bit of a spinal twist up towards the cervical spine. Just whatever feels comfortable. Seeing if you can create a shape that is particularly relaxed for the spine rather than something that feels like a big ask for mobility. And then we'll slowly come back towards center. And from here, you can cross the right ankle just over your left knee. We'll bring the left thigh in towards you, taking your right hand through the legs, left hand around to the outside, looping around the back of the thigh or over the shin. So just finding a nice kind of pigeon stretch in the outer right leg. The shoulders relaxed here, not too much work with your arms. Good deep full breaths. Great, and then we'll release the left foot back to the floor, switching sides. So we're crossing the left ankle over the right knee, drawing the right thigh in towards the body, looping your arms either around your right thigh or right shin. Good pigeon stretch in the outer left hip. And just feeling how that stretch maybe reaches into the back of the pelvis. So nice little loosening up for the lower spine. And then releasing both feet back to the floor, and set your feet up a little bit wider apart, maybe kind of mat width apart. We'll bring the arms out about shoulder height. I'm going to exhale to let both knees sink to the right, so a little bit of a twist in the spine, but also some rotation in the hips. So feel how that left thigh bone rolls inwards as the right thigh bone rolls outwards. You could stay as you are here, or you might place your right foot on top of your left leg if that feels, on top of your left knee in particular, if that feels okay for the knee. If it doesn't feel good for the knee, then don't do it. So just a little bit of extra weight in guiding that left leg into some more internal rotation. And then we can reach the arms up alongside the ears, looping your right hand around your left wrist. Just give a little tug back on that left wrist so we can stretch out a little bit through the left side body and up into the outer left shoulder. A few breaths here. Great, and then we can release the arms, set your right foot back to the floor, bring your knees to center. We'll exhale, both knees over to the left. So letting that right thigh bone roll in as the left thigh bone rolls out. Maybe placing the left foot on top of the right knee if that feels like a useful amount of weight. And then we'll reach the arms alongside the ears. You can take your left hand now along your right wrist and just give a little tug back on the right arm. Maybe even a bit of a side bend feeling to lengthen out the right side waist and into the outer right shoulder. And the head can be nice and relaxed and heavy here. Great, and then releasing the arms, taking the left foot back to the floor. You can inhale your knees back to center. We'll draw the knees into the chest. You can take your hands or your arms around your shins. You're rocking a little bit side to side here. Bring your back and a little massage. And releasing into Shavasana, so as you like, with your knees bent or your legs straight. And settling the hips, the shoulders, the head heavy into the floor. You notice the placement of the shoulder blades on the back here. So again, not too narrow, just a feeling of a really neutral shape in the shoulders so that breath can still move into the backs of the shoulders and the back ribs. At the same time, there's room in the chest. The heads of the shoulders can relax down towards the floor. And soften the area around the neck and the throat. Drop the full weight of your head into the mat. Relax the face. And you slowly start to wake yourself back up. Find little movements in your fingers and your toes. Reaching up alongside your ears and take a full breath in, stretching back through your fingers, forward through your toes. And then we'll exhale to roll onto the right side, bending your knees, bringing your left hand to the floor to press yourself carefully up. Just arriving back at a comfortable seat, cross-legged or whatever works for you, with your eyes closed. We'll just take a moment here to sit up nice and tall and feel how the head balances perfectly at the top of the spine, so we have the least amount of effort in the neck to hold the head in place. And then we also feel how the shoulders can sit in a neutral shape comfortably on top of the ribs. So you can think of like a horse saddle sitting snugly on the back of a horse. The collarbones, the shoulder blades, just resting perfectly on your rib cage. And then the arm bones sit in the shoulder sockets, right in the center of your torso, so not too far forward and not too far back. With this comfortable seat, and just continue to notice how you feel now. Any of the changes or lessons of your practice today. And just bringing your hands together at the center of your chest, and thank yourself for your practice. Namaste. Great. So thank you for joining us. And I hope that was useful. If you feel like you struggle a little bit with the shoulder or arm strength or flexibility, we have a shoulder strength and mobility class on our YouTube channel, which might be a helpful build up towards this class. If you felt that the core was the challenge for you, then we also have a number of core classes that you could try as a precursor to coming back to practicing your headstand. That's all I got. See you soon.